Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Nuggets News. Well, what a monster week the election week has been. I've got my favorite Ethereum t-shirt on. The crypto markets have been on fire. Gold and silver having a strong week. There's talk of money printing everywhere, including our own backyard. So we've got lots to get through. Please watch the whole video if you can. Help that algorithm now that we're not running any ads. Smash that like button and leave a comment. We do welcome a few hundred new subscribers again this week as we edge closer to that 100,000 mark, which is a bit of a milestone. Hopefully we get to before the end of the year, and we'll have a special celebration together. We've had some tremendous guests. We've got some more coming up for you. Thanks to everyone that's been putting up with all my tweets. Crazy to think how fast this has grown as well. And honestly, if you haven't got Twitter, check it out. There's a lot of rubbish on there, and you've got to block the trolls from time to time, but there's a lot of quality content and alpha on there. So check it out, have a play around if you haven't already, and follow the right people. You'll get plenty out of that, I promise you. If you have got friends and family, or if you're new to the space and you've just found the channel, make sure you check out all our free resources. We're continuing to bulk those out. That's why we pour in so much time and effort. So make use of those. Again, all this is free in our knowledge center. Now we also have our premium services. A big thank you to the 500 of you that have signed up on just this platform that have been waiting for this to come out. It feels like all year. And a big thanks to our 4,000 members for their ongoing support. And again, if you want to check out our LinkedIn, we are hiring 2 more in the next couple of weeks. So that is number 23 and 24 staff member, I believe. So we're on a mission. We want to be the #1 place for crypto research in the world. And hopefully you guys can come on that journey with us and be part of it and make use of all that great research. A final thank you to everyone that helps make these sort of things happen. So believe it or not, Peter Schiff and his team actually got in touch with us through a friend of a friend after the bank story broke in Australia. So Peter Schiff wanted to speak to an Australian that was unbiased about that and tell his side of the story, as well as chat about gold and Bitcoin and have a bit of a debate there. So look, hopefully I can have a good conversation with him and get something out of him rather than those debates where he talks over the top of people. So fingers crossed, I think this is one he's going to be absolutely fantastic. And I guess just tying this all together as we get into the local news, this was the most signatures we've had for an online petition into, well, this one is the Murdoch media in Australia. Now, a lot of countries have a problem with mainstream media, but I'm very interested to see where this one goes. Now, it's got a bit of movement and exposure behind it from Kevin Rudd. You know, whatever you think about political sides, this is a big topic that's going to continue to trend around the world, you know, truth in media. And that's where I guess little independent channels like us are starting to get more of a voice. And you look at what happened to Joe Rogan and how some of these bigger channels are really having an impact now. I guess that's where I'd like to see our channel go longer term as well. But for now, there's a lot going on in the crypto and financial markets before we branch off elsewhere. And it's things like this. In Australia, we had this new corruption watchdog committee put together, but they're not going to have the powers to investigate things like the sports rorts and the airport overpayments. So where do you draw the line? I've got a cracker interview with Robbie from CEC this week talking about what happened with Australia Post and how they started to edge into the world of banking, and all of a sudden there's this huge deal made out of this CEO who bought a few watches compared to everything that's happened in the Royal Commission and all the big banks, everything they've done wrong, and our Prime Minister blows up over 4 watches that a CEO gave to a few people that had done their job well. So you do not want to miss that interview with Robbie, because there's definitely something afoot with what is happening in Australia at the moment behind closed doors. All right, this is the spending on media that I just wanted to show to highlight this point. So 150 billion these days, 60% of all this advertising revenue in the US is spent online on the internet. It's just declined on television. You guys probably know you don't even watch the ads when they do come on. You're on your phone. So that is where we want to go as a digital online business. And if you're a bit of an entrepreneur or you've got any sort of business, I think you've got to have this online digital strategy, because it's just the way the world is going at the moment. This was a fantastic article about it that I read this week. So check that out if you haven't already. Have a think about where you're going, because I think with COVID, one thing that's made it really clear is that all these trends are accelerating. All right. So let's get into the local news now. These are the payrolls, jobs by employment size in Australia, and it's clear that the top end of town, 200 employees and more, are recovering at the highest rate. So we've got under 20 employees. Unfortunately, small business, they're the ones that are struggling the most. So I just want to set a backdrop before we get into what's happened in Australia this week, because it is a milestone I think we're going to look back on in history. So you're probably sick of me saying this as well, but a good article from Michael Pascoe, we're back to pushing up house prices as Australia's economic policy. That seems to be the only thing we want to do. Look at the unemployment stats, Roy Morgan versus others, the RBA, Australian government, they're talking about this scenario where things could possibly still be 8% in another year or two. And that's the base case scenario. So look, I think we've got to be absolutely realistic that things are going to be a little bit dire unless we make some big changes. And putting up house prices and giving people more money to buy their first home doesn't create jobs and prosperity and true wealth. So look, the Aussie property bubble hasn't burst yet, but can house prices keep rising in the pandemic? Now, a couple of years ago, I started to lean more bearish, as you know, with all the structural changes, and then we got those signs that the market was bottoming, and particularly in places like Tassie that I love to joke about how it's the best place on earth to live, or over in New Zealand we're starting to see premium property prices where the wealthy people want to live, or people want to get out of cities, people don't want to risk that civil unrest, somewhere nice to raise their kids, clean air. These are the things that people are now wanting, rather than, hey, I want to live in that big city. It's really changing with the work from home, all those kind of themes. Okay, so I actually think now that what's happened with the RBA can very much push up house prices, asset prices. It's going to create all sorts of inflation, exactly as we've seen in other markets. So I think I've said this so many times that the RBA are going to cave, they're going to bend the knee, they're going to do exactly what has happened in every other country around the globe. And that is despite saying that it doesn't work. So remember 2 years ago when we made our documentary, we spoke about all the structural problems in Australia, so reliant on property. Banks are just way too big. They don't lend for small business. They only lend for more speculation on house prices, and we're too reliant on China. Now, here we are, the RBA saying that they're going to raise rates. We said that they're going to go to zero just like everywhere else, and they're going to start printing money. And RBA, they said no, that's extremely unlikely. So how can a little old channel, Nuggets News, predict the future and predict the path of our economy better than these experts? And it's because the textbooks are wrong, their models are wrong. I've learned from people like Steve Keen, who are in the real world using real data and teaching real things and watching what is going on around me. That's where my journey down the rabbit hole started, in the GFC, when none of the economists could tell us why the markets and economy was crashing. All right, so if history is anything to go by, now the RBA have announced QE this week. They're going to start printing that money. It's going to make the rich richer. It's going to drive inequality. Philip Lowe's even admitted in these articles he wrote as recently as last year, but the years before that as well, saying that it contributes to this inequality, and it's been worse around the world because of low interest rate and monetary policy, yet they've just gone to the lowest ever. This other article that he spoke about here in terms of housing inequality specifically, making the rich richer, pushing up asset prices, it's going to cause people to speculate, is one of the things he said in that speech the other day. So look, I get incredibly frustrated with these sort of things, that despite all that, we're just going to do it anyway. We're just going to copy what everyone else is doing. So look, I am going to make some changes in my portfolio, and I do think if they're going to print hundreds of billions of dollars, that stocks could go up, that property is going to keep going up. But you can't complain about it, guys. You got to sit there and do something about it. It's tremendous for Bitcoin and gold and those assets, but don't sit there and wait for the market to crash. Okay, too many people have been doing that in the US for too long. Here we see the RBA in terms of their purchases. So these are the state bonds that they're going to start buying, as well as the government Treasury bonds as well. Now, they've spoken about basically targeting the 3-year part of the yield curve to keep that nice and low. They also did this 15 basis point rate cut. I kind of joked how much of the bank's going to pass on. And sure enough, for variable rate mortgages, which is the vast majority of people, they're not passing on any of this. So this just, again, shows how broken the system is and why central banks are working on these digital currencies so they can bypass the banks when they want to change monetary policy, give you a bonus or a stimulus or cut rates. They want to be able to do that on your own ledger, your own account that you have with them, because they're sick of this kind of nonsense as well. The government, the banks, and the central banks are in this three-way battle for control of money and finance and the world financial system. Okay, so really important to understand this stuff. I know I harp on about it, but CBA have launched a moratorium. So just as the central bank have printed all this money and said, hey guys, here you go, top up your reserves, at a time when they should be, allowing this free market to come into play here because they've got the money printer behind them, they're saying there's this moratorium on forced home sales. So they don't want people selling houses for another year. They don't want house prices to go down. I joked the other night, they can't go down if no one's allowed to sell. So they're not going to kick people out of their homes. And I think that shows you that they'd rather give people a free ride than risk the grand house of cards that is the Australian economy and housing market all come crashing down. So more backflips than an Olympic gymnast. I just spoke about everything that they've said over the past couple of years, and even just a week or two ago they said that they don't see any case for digital currency. Now some people were saying that this is they were speaking about like a commercial versus a retail digital currency. But to me, the public language is just to be so negative from one extreme to another. I didn't make that differentiation at all. So I think they have done a backflip. I think all the central banks have done a backflip. Mario Draghi in 2019 came out and said that these cryptos, they're going to have no impact on monetary policy. They're too small and niche. And then here we are, a year, 18 months later, every central banker in the world is talking about how they're going to launch them and how important they're going to be. Now, one thing that did surprise me when the RBA announced these rate cuts and that they were going to start printing $100 billion, you'd think the currency would go down, but it went up. So why is that? Look, I think it's because commodities like gold and a lot of our mining, there's going to be a lot of benefits in Australia from the commodities and asset prices going up. House prices are probably going to go up. Interest rates aren't going negative, which would have hurt the banks, and the banks are a big component. Houses are a big component of our economy. So I think we're kind of unique in that it's not just the currency effects, it's all the other things that are going to kind of prop up our economy and create that false wealth that we've seen in other countries. So this is why the RBA are cutting rates. I've just described that. They're saying that the recession is over, but I mean, technically on paper, maybe. We've got a lot of work to do. And keep in mind that the scale of Australia's bond buying program is getting close to the Federal Reserves. So our M2 money supply is around $1 trillion. Have I got the chart here? $1 trillion, and it's grown by 10% just this, here we go, sorry. And it's grown by 10% in terms of what they're talking about now printing. So remember how everyone in America is talking about how their money supply has grown by 22%, 25% this year with all the money printing? Australia is going down that path as well. So are we going to start to see businesses start to hoard more gold, put Bitcoin on their balance sheet because of how badly the Aussie dollar is going to get devalued compared to everything around us? One by one, it's just happening in every country. Here's the labour market. We lost 200,000 jobs in the past 28 days. The harsh new reality of trading with China, this seems to be every week there's another commodity. So they've added copper and sugar, wine. We already had lobster, timber, barley, $400 million of wheat imports, and this is $6 billion of our exports. It's a fresh campaign. They're already talking about, coal as well. So everything that we highlighted in our documentary, I'll pin that down below. Go back and watch it if you haven't. It is unbelievable how closely things are playing out to what we, predicted. Now, China are talking about this new energy vehicle sales will be 20% of China's total new car sales by 2025. They're going really aggressively after these other markets. I don't think that Tesla necessarily have an edge. I think that a lot of these other car companies are going to pivot, and they already are, into these renewables or battery-powered electric vehicles in some way. And these numbers, look, I'm not going to debate this too much, but you can see the market cap of Tesla versus, the sales, earnings per share, those other metrics. It's definitely one that I think has got a lot of investment from Robin Hood and young people that just love the name and the logo. But either way, China vows to hit back. This is the US selling these drones to Taiwan. So this friction that's sort of simmering. Vladimir Putin apparently stepping down. There's some rumors that he's got Parkinson's disease. So look, now that we've got Biden, it looks like he's definitely going to be in. Vladimir Putin might be stepping down. We might get a bit of a change there, and there could be, less war of words on social media and a bit more of a calmer time for global markets. So look, let's see what comes of that. US continuing unemployment claims, but the big number here is these emergency or temporary help services. A lot of people are still being affected by COVID here. Paying down credit cards is that outlier event, as people seem to be feeling like they've got to knuckle down. Over the recent years, they've just been whacked more and more in terms of the amount of credit and loans they've got to have, whether it's these autos, student loans over $1 trillion, consumer debt, but they are paying down those credit cards. One thing that I was a little bit shocked by that came from left field, Oregon is the first US state that's decriminalizing the possession of hard drugs. So look, if you haven't watched all the documentaries about the history of drugs, and when you hear statements like they're going to legalize drugs, some people go, wow, that's taboo, you can't do that. Look, I'm definitely in the camp that with the right education and health services and treating the problem from a complete overview rather than just the specifics, I think it's far better to go down that path than to throw people in jail that have addiction or are drug users. There's normally other problems. So I do think it's a good thing. Maybe not necessarily the hard drugs as the first ones. Go step by step, and you've got to sort of roll this out in the community in stages. But either way, it is happening at a time when there's a lot of civil unrest in America. Are other states going to follow? Let me know what you think if you're in the States. Now, with terms of the votes, it was tight. We saw that on social media. You're all sick of the charts, and there were some Supreme Court orders here to segregate these different ballots, and Trump was very busy on Twitter. Heading into the election, a lot of the big corporate insiders, they didn't want too much risk on, so we saw those usual flows where people sort of sell shares, and we can see these insider transaction ratios were high that week leading into the election. None more so than Jeff Bezos selling $3 billion of his own shares. Pocket change for him, I think. Here's how all the tech billionaires spent their money during the election cycle. So this was a good article seeing how much Google and Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, who they donated to. And I was a little bit surprised to hear that our mate over at FTX, he's a very controversial figure of late, Sam, the CEO. He donated $5 million to Biden, and that was the second biggest donor. So that is a crazy amount of money. They must be having a good time of it over there at FTX with all our fees. But plunging morale and self-congratulations inside Facebook the day before the presidential election. So this to me just highlights the big tech, the times are changing there. Is Biden going to do more about it than Trump would have? I'm not too sure, but it's probably on the agenda. This chart on FTX just shows you their prediction markets and how it was a bit of a wild to and fro between Trump and Biden, and that has since settled down. But a lot of people did get it wrong. Well, maybe not in the end, but I think it was a lot closer than what people thought. Okay, so into the US economic news. Here's the reasons why we're not going to have this housing shortage. And we hear these numbers short term, and it does, I guess, skew things a little bit. But I think we're heading down this path of more like Japan, where we're going to have a lot of people that are moving back in with their parents. And we already see that in some of the numbers. But we've got leaving from New York, it's these high earners, particularly in finance and tech, and explaining why they left the world's greatest city. So, New York Stock Exchange. These people don't want that way of life anymore, like I spoke about at the start. London as well. So these cities that were traditionally the most expensive places in the world. And from there, you had all the restaurants where the wealthy people went out and spent. So it's this kind of cycle that feeds on itself. And once they start to leave, everything is done on margins these days. So even 10 or 20% of people can make a huge difference to that restaurant that operates on a 10% margin. And then, they're not going to go down to the local butcher to get the meat. And it's all this, this big cycle that the economy starts to change. And I say water finds its level. I think it's going to do that in terms of the suburbs compared to the cities in a lot of places. If you've got a good internet connection, you can work from home, why not do it? So it is good where we see those falling rents in the cities. The other thing here is the whole idea of this education model, and particularly in America, they're saying that this whole university system is completely broken. It's bad enough in a lot of countries, even I guess in Australia, you could argue people come out with a degree they don't really use, and they've got this HEX debt. In America, the debts are triple, quadruple what we have in Australia, and it does really put some of the smarter people that did go to uni under debt for that first part of their life. Remember, the further behind you get at the start, the harder it is to come back from. So look, Shamath is putting in his 2 cents here, and I definitely think there's way too many people that study degrees they don't necessarily need. They could become an entrepreneur, get life experience, and go down that path instead. With all that happening in terms of people moving out of the cities and these businesses struggling, we see the credit worthiness of a lot of these companies really changing here, and the tier of triple Bs, which is one tier above junk debt, that is the real worry for the Fed. Now, before the election, we saw these huge sales or selling of the ETFs, the bond ETFs, whether it's the Treasury bonds or some of the investment grade bonds. People are just getting out of these assets, and I think it's all to do with the bond rates and the yields. We're starting to see that the delinquency rate tick up again. Keep an eye on that. That's those commercial mortgage-backed securities that are about to come to an end of that grace period where a lot of companies don't have to pay. So the Fed's not really talking about buying more bonds this year or next year, but if you have a look at all these other facilities and swaps and operations that they've done with all the funny acronyms, I think that's where they're going to be playing around. Look at the valuations of the different indexes with or without QE. You can see how much of a difference it's made in the NASDAQ. They're suggesting here that it would have been 5,000 instead of getting up towards 12,000 or more, all because of QE. And remember, the Fed deny that. They deny that the QE has pushed up those asset prices. So stocks are rallying on the hopes of a divided government. It's kind of funny here that some people are saying they wanted the clean sweep for the Democrats, and Biden gets in and spends this $3 trillion, and that's going to pump everything up. And now they're saying, well, this Goldilocks scenario is more the divided and the balanced government between the House and the Senate to keep everyone a little bit honest. So I'm not sure what's going to happen on Monday. It could be a bit of volatility, a little bit of a down move until people reshuffle their portfolios a bit. But overall, I think they're going to look to get that stimulus out. So I'm not sure if it's a Goldilocks scenario because it's a gridlock, but there's definitely more pressure on the Fed now to do another wave of QE, particularly if they can't get the stimulus package agreed upon. Every day that goes by, there's more pressure on the Fed to do something. So the pace of central bank purchases has kind of slowed down. This is all the central banks. This is trillions of dollars that we're dealing in. Q2 there, $4 trillion, another 2, another 1. I think we're going to have to see those central banks ramp that up. And the Fed have even started talking about asset purchases now rather than just, Treasury bonds. So going out in these other markets. And this is obviously the scenario that we got here with the Republicans in the Senate. And people are saying, yeah, maybe fiscal stimulus, not huge compared to what it maybe would have been with the clean sweep. But is it a deflationary scenario? If it does go down that path, that's the pressure on the Fed to print like more. So no matter which way we're going, there's going to be a lot of money printed. So, enjoy it as a gold, silver, and crypto holder. This just shows the relationship between all those markets I've spoken about a lot and QE. This is how the bond market reacted back in 2016 when yields shot up after the election. So everyone is selling bonds and that is when the yields rise. Selling bonds, yields rise because everyone wanted to put their chips in the things that Donald Trump was going to spend on. So that might happen again at the moment. But for the time being, 30-year bonds, very, very low yield at the moment. The percent of asset allocation from these different managers in investment strategies, 1% exposed to 30-year bonds compared to 9 years ago. 9% back in 1987, 30 odd years ago. That's when you could get a good yield on a bond, and more people are going to be happy to have 9% of their portfolio if you can get 9% on a bond. Whereas we've now reached the point where 30%, 25%, let's call it, I think we're going to surpass this 30% mark of all these bonds are negative yields. And sure enough, another prediction we made was that this 17 trillion amount of negative yielding debt was going to be passed this year, and it has played out to the day this week. So if this number gets back up another 5%, we are talking 20 trillion. So I think that puts gold to new all-time highs. It's just so ultra bullish for Bitcoin as well. US dollar net positioning. Look, a lot of people are still short the US dollar. It had a pretty massive fall this week. Let's just bring that one up quickly because we're at such a key level now. If we break down from here, that is the ultimate, I think, green flag. You can just see that we're here. If we break down from here, then we've only got down here in the sort of high 80s once we get through that 90 level. And then there's not a lot of support underneath that. So just a quick little bit of technical analysis there. The US dollar has a lot of room to free fall if we lose this key level. And that's going to depend on what the stimulus bill looks like, how quickly it gets through, or if the Fed act, or both. Maybe if there's nothing happening there, we get a bit of a bounce in the short term and gold and Bitcoin have another bit of a hit. But I think investors, there's going to be a lot of relief that it's all behind us, and that money on the sidelines is probably going to flow into assets, if I had to guess. This is the US dollar as share of emerging market debts. It's still number one by a mile at 74%. Bank of England is the latest with their boss pledging to do everything we can. It's the old whatever it takes moment. We're going to print whatever we can because, the EU saying that the UK economy is tanking in this forecast, assuming that there's no deal with this Brexit. So a little bit like the election, everyone gets to have their say about how bad things are going to be and how much money you need to spend. Government need to do it. Central bank need to act. No one's talking about, reforming the economy structurally because there's problems with the actual money system itself. Cumulative central bank balance sheets, we're now up to 24 trillion. I expect that to be 30 trillion at least by the end of next year, which would put on another 20% to Bitcoin's price and gold's price at the bare minimum. So new all-time highs there for all those assets. Now Bitcoin's getting up towards 16,000 or more in Aussie dollars. We're already past 20,000 Aussie dollars. China is relatively strong if you believe these numbers compared to other economies. Turkey's central bank chief has been given the boot because of how bad the lira is going. And they're calling this the devil's triangle. Getting caught in interest rates, exchange rates, all these countries get punished, these emerging market currencies, and then they get this inflation because they try to print money. It doesn't work for them. They're not the world reserve currency. This was just a tweet I put out showing you how I thought the US dollar was going to roll over technically with the Bollinger Bands. And that, again, that was a beautiful cyclical trade that worked out for us. US fiscal deficit compared to GDP, yeah, it's pretty big, but so is everywhere else. We just spoke about how Australia are now doing it to a similar degree as everyone else. Real GDP compared to these prior expansions. So look, the rubber's hitting the road where you just don't get the bang for your buck for each $1 trillion you spend these days. It doesn't really go far. That's why people like Warren Buffett are playing this game perfectly. So they're buying back a record amount of their own shares because they know the Fed and that this money is coming and it's going to be good for stocks. But he's also gone into gold. You guys love this chart every week, don't you? It's just going vertical, the amount of money that's flowing into these physically held gold ETFs. And gold posted its biggest weekly gain since back in July. So I think that does show you that markets are kind of hoping that all this is going to be good for the metals. Copper climbs, zinc, that's all that fiscal stimulus, all the building and construction that's happening. And with this gold to oil ratio, or it's more the commodities to the stocks, the tangibles versus intangibles that I talk about, that's where I think the next big cycle is to play and where you can make money. Now, if you don't want to trade any of those commodities, the gold and silver ETFs or the miners, this promotion, I believe, with the changes coming to Australia, this is going to end in the coming months. So if you want your $100 free Bitcoin, guys, sign up with the link below. Head over there. All those US products, if you don't use any leverage, they're all zero fees. So very, very cool. And that is what I use, not for crypto, but for the US stocks and ETFs, commodities, currencies, no fees. Happy days. Okay, so let's get into the crypto news. If you are starting the episode from here, as I know some of you do, and you just watch the crypto news, head over and check out the Knowledge Center. It's all free. Everything your friends and family need for crypto investing to get them started nice and safely on their journey. And then for those that want our premium research, check it out. Crypto Spotlight reports. You've got the other resources there as well. The daily snapshots, headline analysis. If you live a busy life, you want this sort of stuff. And then our other research reports. So that's the macro, the gold, silver, the NFT reports. It's all there in that nice handy platform that we've finally got out. Okay, so into the crypto news. Justice Department, everyone freaked out a little bit when this $1 billion worth of coins moved on chain, but the Justice Department have just seized these Silk Road coins and they're going to auction those off. And I've got a bit of a feeling, another prediction I'll make is that a big name that maybe hasn't bought crypto before is going to buy these $1 billion of Bitcoin when they get auctioned off by the US feds. HSBC is using blockchain to import 20,000 tons of fuel from Singapore. So look, this is the positive example. The other end of the spectrum is where Iran are going to use Bitcoin to import oil and get around those sanctions. And that is where things are going to get interesting at the next IMF meeting, how they're going to deal with all that. Biden is expected to possibly hire a Bitcoin-friendly Gary Gensler to help oversee Wall Street. So former CFTC chair, and he is pro-Bitcoin. So look, we're all for that, guys. The more crypto and Bitcoiners we can have in Congress, and on the right team, I should say, the better. I mentioned it before, but I'll just say it again quickly here. Sam from FTX donated $5 million to Biden campaign. So maybe he knows something that we don't. Maybe he's just giving that Bitcoin straight to Biden so he can tell everyone now that the president's a Bitcoiner. But there's plenty of prediction markets that have flourished this week. I think by the next election, the crypto prediction markets will be bigger than the traditional legacy gambling prediction markets, because just watching it all unfold in real time was so cool. The odds change and watching it against the US dollar and gold and crypto, that was just something that you couldn't really do on Wall Street previously. So I loved it. FTX did have their prediction market, but another investment they made was $3 million into 3 commas. So for those of you that don't know, 3 commas is one of the bots. And my, thoughts on bots are, every cycle someone comes to me and they've got this new bot and it makes money, it's great. And I say, come back when it's made money in up and down markets, sideways markets, volatile markets, and no one ever comes back to me. So it is possible for these bots to make money with different strategies, but they've got to change over time. And nothing in life is free. If it was that easy just to buy an app and print money, then everyone would be doing it. And it's only central bankers that get to do that, remember? Okay, Hong Kong, their securities watchdog may soon require all those crypto platforms to be regulated. That's optional at the moment, and FTX is in Hong Kong, so they might have to go elsewhere. South Korea are planning on banning privacy coins from exchanges. That's a trend that we see continuing. Shapeshift had to delist Monero. Look, one thing I might have got a little bit wrong is the fact that I did say this was going to happen, but I said that I wouldn't invest in privacy coins for this reason. But even though that's all happened, the price has gone up a little bit. So it's kind of like the illegal black market where things demand a premium because of the difficulty to acquire them. So the privacy coins have actually been really strong performers this year, despite being made illegal on a lot of exchanges. Maybe that's a foreshadowing if they ever try to ban Bitcoin, it's going to make the price go up even more. The privacy Bitcoin wallet, Wasabi wallet, will automatically use coin joins in future. I think they're also looking to use the ZK technology like Zcash and Ethereum as well. Blockstream are working on more of these private multi-sig transactions using Taproot. So there's going to be privacy coming to Bitcoin. It's already on Ethereum. Speaking of Blockstream, the next Bitcoin Cash fork, a little bit up in the air. It looks like the Bitcoin Cash node is on track to get rid of the ABC implementation. So that looked like it was going to be another chain split. You can claim both coins if you're a Bitcoin Cash hodler, not if you're a Bitcoin hodler. Into the gaming and NFT news. Formula E Racing is one of 4 big titles that came out. We had Rev E from Amico Brands. As you can see here, Axie Infinity has been in the news lately. Super Rare, Sonium Space. Brazilian soccer team tokenizing their FIFA player transfer fees. Terra Virtua creating these NFT collectibles for Comic-Con. I just love that we're sort of infiltrating the real world, the type of people that love this sort of stuff anyway. Niftex raises $500,000 to build out their NFT trading platform, backed by some big players, Coin Fund, Digital Currency Group. So the VC money is coming for the gaming and NFT world, and that's when we know we're on the right track with our investments. Hopefully Red Fox is one of those investments that I've made personally. I've been pretty open with you guys about that, trying to drop a lot of breadcrumbs publicly as well, because I don't like to mention the smaller cap coins too much. But members know that this is one that's had a lot of good news lately. The first snapshot took place, so that will entitle you to get those NFTs and the Ethereum if you're a liquidity pool provider on Uniswap. But they're also doing this drop of the cogs. So you'll be eligible to get these rare cogs. So head over to the website and read the latest news announcement about that one as well. That's the website there, new website, redfoxlabs.io. PewDiePie pushes to get this video game that gives out crypto. Huge YouTuber. I think he's the #1 YouTuber. Everyone is getting into crypto these days. Arweave, this is combining with Axie Infinity here. So all the big brands, the DeFi world wants to get into the NFT and gaming world. And Maddie and I will keep you in front of it there with our monthly update on YouTube. But we're also doing this NFT report. So members, please read that. Give us some feedback about what you liked, what you want changed. And this is another product that we'll be adding to the platform. I think we're getting into the payments DeFi news now. So Chinese payment giant UnionPay is supporting crypto with their new virtual card. We've got PayPal looking to raise the limit to $15,000 a week for crypto purchases because people have been so eager. So that is very bullish. They're rolling out their services to more countries around the globe and supporting central bank digital currencies as well. So along with Venmo. So they are going foot to the floor. If you can't beat them, you do have to join them. DeFi app Dharma, they're looking to connect directly with US bank accounts. So now you can make these in-app purchases directly through the bank. So getting people straight into the world of DeFi to buy some Ethereum or stablecoins and earn interest without even knowing they're doing so, really. Visa planned to a $5 billion purchase of Plaid, and Plaid is the company that Dharma use here, and it's been challenged by the US Department of Justice because they're saying the Visa just want to acquire this company to try and stamp out things like this and try this anti-competitive behavior with some of the crypto DeFi-ish companies. So that is great to see them get in front of that early. Square has been on absolute fire. 80% of their Q3 revenue came from sales of Bitcoin. Do we have the official figures there? No, millions of dollars. Is it $1 billion that they've sold altogether now? Overall revenue, $2 billion. This is why other companies are jumping on board. They see how much money Square and the Cash App are making. Circle's high-yield USDC stablecoin business is taking aim at DeFi. So they want to get involved here as more of a CeFi product. Licensed Swiss crypto bank launches Tezos trading and staking. So more and more of these crypto bank meets traditional bank, or fintech meets crypto, or fintech meets traditional banking. There's just such a big overlap these days, and DeFi is just eating the world of finance and payments. Digital milkshake theory, as you guys know. These are just a couple of items I mentioned before about the ECB and the RBA saying that crypto was, no go, and before you know it, they've done a backflip, and the Aussie dollar is looking to tap into Ethereum thanks to consensus that are very, very active at talking with these central banks and getting on the front foot. And I think it's very, very clear now when everything that is happening in this space, the CFTC allowing ErisX to now trade commodities. So they start off as a crypto platform, they're now trading commodities. Again, the melding of the two worlds. The SEC is making it easier for crypto startups to raise funds, so increasing that minimum amount with the laws they had from 1 million to 5 million. Now we can do a little raise with less regulation around it. But this is the big item, that Ripple CTO. So David Schwartz is coming out and talking about why they've had such a lack of adoption. And again, this is just another flag for me. I don't need to say it anymore, but there's hundreds of announcements every week, and it seems like they're just not making a lot of traction. Okay, 2 more rug pulls, unfortunately. Look, avoid these projects. Do your research. There's no need to tinker around at the edges with these high-risk projects because there's so many good ones out there. Now, when DeFi was correcting and it had a bit of a bad name, all the DeFi indexes and coins were down 60, 70, 80, 90% in some instances. But I drove home the message that the fundamentals are still strong. Chainlink's integrating with more and more projects. We've got more oracles or other great projects starting up. There's plenty of appetite from VCs. They're investing here still. It's not a bubble that's popped. UMA announced developer mining. So instead of liquidity mining, they're now giving the money to developers to come and build. So you get paid to build. The innovation in creativity and experimentation, every week there's another cool concept, which I love. Stablecoins continue to grow. Tether's now at $17 billion alone. Notional is bringing these fixed rates to Ethereum. So the idea of these bond curves, it's just such a mature market now when you've got the likes of Polychain, Parify, these huge backers. The space is about to explode in terms of the traditional financial markets moving their products onto the world of DeFi. And it's going to require layer 2s. And like I spoke about in the last few months, Uniswap are going to come out and surprise people with a layer 2 implementation of their product. And this is it. So this is Arbitrum. I think this news was missed by a lot of people because of the election. This is your layer 2. So it's not on mainnet yet. You can have a play around with it. The Arbitrum is another side chain that I spoke about for the optimistic roll-ups. And this is here. So this might only be a few weeks away from mainnet. And we've got a fully scaled Uniswap. And then we'll have synthetics, Aave, Chainlink. And all of a sudden the whole Ethereum can't scale debate, it's almost over before we've even launched ETH2 and staking. In many regards, at least to start with for what we've got at the moment and the capacity. Alrighty. Web3. So Arweave is a permanent Dropbox, a great little project we covered for members in our research back in August. If you want to head over to the database and read about that one. DeFi picks $1.3 billion added in 1 week, so that money continued to flow into DeFi, and sure enough, the tide turned. So these were from November lows. So just in a few days, in 1 week, huge bounces back from the best projects that we continue to cover. And I did a big write-up about Wi-Fi. I know some people say, oh, you're shilling it. Some people think I'm paid to shill it, even though Wi-Fi aren't a company. But this is one that I had to hold my conviction on when everyone was giving me crap about it. And I was underwater. I got stopped out a couple of times. But when it goes and you're on your margin and you make that 1,000% in a couple of days with a nice long, it makes it all worth it. And I know plenty of you got on board that one as well when I posted my write-up and reasoning, the fundamentals, technicals, and sentiment about why I thought this had a bullish thesis and it wasn't dead like everyone was saying. So congrats to those guys. I think Wi-Fi's still got a bright future. All right, so Vitalik's committed $1.5 million for staking. This isn't something that's for beginners. You can see the amount of effort's gone in here on launchpad.eth.org. We need to get this full by the 1st of December, and I can guarantee that is going to happen. The big boys will come in if it's not full, and that's when we can start to stake. Now, if you're a beginner, don't deposit to the contract. Don't even try to do it, okay? This is something that's for only advanced users at this stage. And you can see all the stats, follow it, check it out, keep up to date with the news, but there's a lot of risks. And yes, there's some rewards for the validators. You might decide that you do want to do it with Rocket Pool once they have the tools up. But even they have said that they want to wait a little bit because it is such an experimental technology. So a lot of people are keen because the yields look like they'll be around 20%, to be honest, to start with. And then we've got the fee burning coming in. So the stars are absolutely aligning in terms of Ethereum as this asset class and all its properties that we've never had before, that Wall Street is about to learn. Just like they took a while to learn about Bitcoin, they're about to learn about Ethereum. We finished the final clip for our Ethereum documentary. That is going to be for members only to begin with because it's a Real Vision thing. So Real Vision members will get it. Nuggets News members will get it. I might do a private screening. If some of you are interested in that, let me know. Let's maybe get a virtual meetup with 10 or 20 of us, and we'll watch the 90-minute one-on-one chat I had with Vitalik is coming out first because it was meant to be 20 minutes. It turned into 90 minutes, and it was probably the best interview, the most enjoyable for me at least ever. And they said, the guys at Real Vision said, that's so good. We've got to put that out as a teaser piece and let everyone see that, and that's going to get them excited for the 3-part documentary that has 8 guests, and then Raul and I and Ash talking about Ethereum from start to finish. Either way, let me know if you're keen for that and if you're interested in maybe an exclusive, and see if we can get Vitalik. That would be very cool. FTX are talking about listing the new beacon chain Ethereum, so it might have a slightly different price, and that's just for people to speculate on. If you're a beginner, you don't need to do anything. You don't need to try and understand that. It's just there for speculative purposes and for other people to hedge, I guess, as well. Grayscale had their largest ever week, 500,000 Bitcoin in total. Bitcoin has now overtaken the base money supply of the United Kingdom and Russia. So when people say to you at the barbecue over Christmas, New Year, governments won't ever let Bitcoin get big and win. It is already doing it, guys. One by one, it just ticks off these countries. Veteran investor Bill Miller saying that every major investment bank will own some Bitcoin, like it or not. This is on CNBC. This is just penetrating the mainstream. Every day we get another news announcement. Bitcoin difficulty had its biggest drop since back in the ASIC days in 2011, before the ASIC miners. Now, if you watch the monthly mining update, you'll know all about that. So check that out if you want more information. But crypto mining is drawing in all the world's top renewable energy resources. We spoke about how this would push the sort of green renewable movement and could become a world leader. It could even be 100% renewable, which would be fantastic. But I also said it's going to become a geopolitical thing. Who's got the most hash rate? So Russia, hydropower giant, they're opening up this big mining farm near the dam. We've got Hive blockchain in the US, doubling their capacity for hash rate. Iran getting into it as well. So look, I probably couldn't be more bullish on what is happening around us. Let's just have a quick look at the on-chain data, what that's telling us. The one metric I wanted to show you here is all the coins that are leaving exchanges and very few that are heading to exchanges. So as long as that's the case, it means people are hodling and there's not whales that are sending coins to exchanges to dump. I think people know that we're early, and if you want the full research, guys, in the research reports, we've got sentiment and the on-chain data reports. But I just think it tells you that people are now realizing that Bitcoin is speculative and it's volatile, but you don't buy it because you want to sell it when it goes to 100K. You buy it because when it's at 100K, the Fed are probably going to have to print another 20 trillion, and that means Bitcoin will be worth 120K the next year, and it's going to track whatever money gets printed and just absorb that, okay? So keep that in mind. Technically, things are looking absolutely beautiful here. This is Ethereum. the breakout, the retest. Once we get above this area between 275, 290, I think that Ethereum is going to have a crack at $700 or $800 in the next couple of weeks before the end of the year. Unless stocks roll over, unless something changes dramatically, I think that is very much on the cards. And if we have a look at Bitcoin, I'm in a similar camp. Remember when no one thought that my scenario of breaking out, coming back and retesting and exploding was on the cards? It has played out nicely, surprised a lot of people. So here we are with that one last resistance that everyone was waiting for at around 14-ish K. We've now got this mark here about 16, depending on which exchange you're on, it's around 16, 16.3. That's kind of where we've touched a little bit short of that. That's what we're watching tomorrow morning. Weekly close, massive weekly close. If we close above there, and I think it's a pretty good chance we can, if we close above there, then I think we make a new all-time high next week. If we don't, we've got to cool off. If we've got to form another bull flag under here, so be it. I'm absolutely fine with that too. I don't mind how deep it goes. I think most of you will want that correction. Don't get scared like a lot of people did from the messages I got about the DeFi coins this week. Embrace it when you get that pullback that you want back to maybe this level here, 12K, touch these wicks again. ETH Bitcoin pair, finally, I do want to mention this. Another trade that has just played out absolutely perfectly. And here we go, the golden zone, fib retracement. We swept the lows and took a bit of liquidity, but look at this reversal weekly doji here. To me, that suggests that we're going up to retest here, if not make new highs, because this is almost a perfect falling wedge. Now, what that means is that Bitcoin is going to outperform, Ethereum is going to outperform Bitcoin. That's good news for large cap alts, but the sun is shining. Everything is looking up. It's been a tremendous run. Let's not get euphoric. Let's take it one day at a time. I'll continue to keep you up to date, guys. But look, I'm very happy that we've got through crypto winter and we're here entering that bull market. We've got the platform out in time for all your friends and family to learn. If they're beginning, please send them there. Take advantage of that. Otherwise, smash the like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. Share these videos around. I'll talk to you again soon. Cheers.